In 2017, I started playing World of Warcraft. I was looking for a hobby, and very quickly, it turned into something much more than a hobby. I played the game a lot, and I remember the main motivation to play World of Warcraft at the time was endgame dungeons and raiding. It was skill-based content that put the tools that you've gained and the items that you've gathered from the monotonous tasks of an MMO to use and allowed you to, I don't know, flex on your friends in a more meaningful way, I think. If you look at Skyblock, you can see a lot of parallels with the way that World of Warcraft worked. Um, in that combat, Skyblock, this is Slayers and Dungeons, was the main source of endgame skill-based content. There is, of course, the difference between skills in the sense of being good at something and skills in the sense of mining, farming, foraging, and fishing. Um, but I think that the Slayers and Dungeons, and if you ask other people who played early Skyblock, because I'm not that person, which is why I brought up Warcraft, they'll say that skill-based content like Slayers and Dungeons was really what put Skyblock on the map. As opposed to being just a fun game to play while you're bored, it made it a real, fully fleshed game with more of a reason to play it. The other thing that I think brought a lot of attention to Skyblock is that some people would just take the game way farther than you're realistically supposed to. There are systems for crazy endgame players, but if you've watched any of the recent 30 Virus videos where he's doing his Skyblock stuff and taking contraband and um, discussing prices on items, you'll know that the prices don't really make sense for the average person. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But, however, when you see somebody complete these really insane grinds, for example, the one goal that Technoblade made for himself to get 500 million potato collection, or be number one for as long as he decided it was worthwhile, and kind of hold that sort of grudge match competition between him and Squid Kid, I believe, was massively successful on YouTube and showed the people that there was other goals that they could reach and that it was possible. I think that seeing endgame players achieve ridiculous goals is also super motivating for people to come and play the game. Now, in the present day, you kind of have a combination of those two ideas. You have skill-based content being pushed to the max. People like Death Streaks being the first person to hit Cat of 50. Now Treg and Vority are 55, I think. That might be higher now, but I think it's still Cat of Home's 55 is the current record. Try to Clean doing insane stuff with Enderman Slayer, getting sub 45 second bosses. Many other examples. All stemming from a point of being super endgame and having loads of money and clout and max stats. Skyblock players are still interested in maxing their stats. Now I would say for the majority of players, and it's just maxing your combat related stats, because foraging, fishing, and farming haven't seen any sort of update in years. And these are things that are going to come in 1.0, but I'll continue to talk about that in a moment. Interestingly enough, Skyblock Google Trends data does not match this description, but here if you look at this trends data, you can see there's peaks and valleys, but no significant trend changes that I think can be attributed to any event. I'm not really sure what to gain from this, and I'm going to discard it. Unfortunately, there's no other Skyblock player count database over time. There is Hypixel player count databases, but I don't really have any real evidence other than anecdotal to support this claim. However, if you play Skyblock for any length of time, I imagine you can probably understand where I'm coming from. But here is where I want to flip the script a little bit and start talking about how Skyblock has taken this really good base foundation for the game and kind of thrown it on its head, and how Skyblock is kind of a dead game. I think at this point it's kind of common knowledge that dupers and cheaters, by extension, are ruining the fun for new players and old players alike. If you're a new player, for example, your God Potion currently can last 12 hours plus the 20% boost from your parrot at maximum, because currently you can't level your alchemy because brewing stands are disabled due to dupes. Now that's fairly surface level, but I want to talk a little bit about why I think people are duping and stuff. If you've watched 30 Virus play recently, I'm going to bring him up again. I talked about how he mentions that the progression for Skyblock does not make sense once you reach a certain point. And to a certain extent, I think he's right. And to a certain extent, I can understand the people who say, well, Skyblock is just supposed to be a hardcore MMO, and you don't get it. There's a lot of people that play this game in Iron Man, for example, and do it legit. If you look at HS Fearless or Second Fierce, unfortunately, rip Bozo to zero, he's a macroer, but unfortunately, the majority of the players do not take the game as seriously as some of those people, but they still want to reach the same end. Now, usually, you can get around this, and you can give those type of players what they want by regular releasing new content, so that way they'll progress at a rate that is kind of consistent. When the Crystal Hollows came out, for example, a lot of the endgame dungeon players at the time went to go grind that, and it gave players who wanted to be endgame dungeon players a chance to catch up. And you saw that happen. There's new players in the dungeon scene like Treg and Vordy who are overtaking Destrix and Kata XP right now. So everybody can kind of accomplish their goals. Additionally, new systems in the game will introduce new and faster ways to get money and get what you want. Like now, it's incredibly easy to get a billion net worth through mining or through fishing and stuff like that, where in the early days of Skyblock, a billion coins was inconceivable. However, Hypixel Skyblock has been in a content drought for a very long time, and I'm sure that if you've been keeping up with the content scene on Skyblock YouTubing, you've seen this, right? It's kind of been talked about by pretty much everyone, so I'm not going to go into it in too much depth. But basically, design threads are being posted all the time about potential changes in 1.0, and they want to massively overhaul the game, but if we've learned anything about Skyblock updates, is that they're often very riddled with bugs and glitches and stuff that is very unintentional. So they want to do it right, and I can understand that. However, it's getting to the point where very many people are reaching this kind of endgame status for the current metas, and it's getting very boring for them. And these kind of not super tryhard players are reaching a point in the game where progression doesn't make sense anymore, and they're turning to duping and macroing and a bunch of other cheating to keep the game interesting, and I can understand this. I mean, think about it for a second. When's, like, the last time you've seen one of these dupers get banned? Like, a lot of them do, but a lot of them don't. Same with macros, same with dungeon sweats. Like, the whole, like, cheaters get banned meme. It's not serious. If you're new to Skyblock, I'll just lay it down. Cheaters don't really get banned on Skyblock. It's just not a thing. Stupid cheaters get banned. However, even just a couple people cheating makes it really easy for other competitive players to kind of join in, because other people outpacing your progression alongside literally no repercussions for starting to cheat as well just makes it super easy. So that's why I don't think necessarily cheaters are ruining the game. I think the lack of updates in Skyblock alongside the lackluster anti-cheat, which is a very complicated issue, is what's really killing the game at the moment. However, I just think small updates would solve this problem. People would be too distracted with trying to find out new metas and having fun with different content. It wouldn't even have to be like groundbreaking stuff. It would just have to be like new things to grind. Skyblock is not at a point where it's going to be getting to a state where it's boring, like World of Warcraft did, where they just released a new raid every 3 months and essentially reset your progress, right? Because the end game, they just pushed it a little bit further each time, or they do stat shrinks and stuff like that. Skyblock is kind of reaching that point, but realistically, all that needs to be done is systems need to be put in place, like actual mob resistance to player damage and other things to combat general number inflation. That's the point of making it meaningless. There needs to be more coin sinks to keep coins out of the economy, and so auctions won't regularly exceed integer limit for new items. Devon's drill. Like Ska the Pet, like you can't find. Well, Ska the Pet is genuinely rare, but like you couldn't find Devon's alloy on AH for like a month. Like it just did not exist. So you couldn't even look at other people's items on the AH and be like, whoa. There's none of that wow factor. And you can either just deal with the bigger numbers and fix the auction house system, or just make it so it's easier and less likely for items to ever get that valuable, but I think that's a much easier problem to tackle than trying to do an entire skill overhaul all at once for 1.0. By the way, if you're not aware of the true scale of the duping situation, and if you're just kind of a casual player, let me outline it for you as well. So there's been like tens and tens and tens, like probably hundreds of billions of coins that are actively distributed in the economy from dupers. I know Pixel Club put out a video about like how 5 trillion coins were introduced in the economy and the economy literally just doubled. But realistically, the important stuff that got distributed was probably a couple 100 billion coins that just people will not get banned for. But that is such an absurd amount of money, because like if you were one of the people who just put in a buy order for perfect topaz, or put in a buy order for enchanted blaze rods, like it's equivalent to dropping a core or 2 or 3. Like I had a friend who made 10 bill, and I had another friend, or I know other people who had made like 20 or 30, and like, I'm not saying everybody who's super rich is a topaz duper, that's not the case at all, but those people are ridiculously rich now for no reason. It's like dropping 15 cores all at once is what you get if you did a topaz buy order for 10 bill sell. And that's fine. I'm not saying what those people did was wrong. If I had the opportunity to go back and put in buy orders for perfect topaz, I would have done it. But that's the magnitude of the extent that like the duping has invalidated a player's experience, because I've put in an ungodly amount of time into both mining and E-Slayer, probably like 500 plus hours, and with not so great luck, but whatever with E-Slayer, average luck I guess I'll say, and it's just absurd how much I feel like that work was for nothing, because it's just like, well, could have just duped topaz. And if you're an early game player, you'll feel it's even more, because you're working for like 5 mil an hour tops in your first like 500 hours of your play time. And that's just like if you're doing the boring, sweaty stuff. So it's kind of, at some point people look back and they think, why should I be doing this? And then they install a funny mod, and all of a sudden their count is on overnight doing doing Nether War. Like, I'm not surprised. Most of the people that I know that are macroing are not IRLing, because there's not people coming into the economy who care that much about getting coins. There's some, but like the endgame players can just sell their accounts off, and it's much easier because then they don't get banned anyway. I mean, I'll give Skyblock some credit where it's due, right? If you're a macroer and you sell off your coins to some random person, they're probably going to get banned, especially if they have low skill average. But selling accounts is almost impossible to track, so there's not really a necessity for those type of people, right? I think that trading will exist without them, and trading is not super influenced in volume by the amount of people macroing. It sure inflates the economy, but there's bigger issues at this point. But yeah, when people come to my stream because of this stuff, I just tell them Skyblock isn't worth playing. Like, if they're asking you for advice and tips and stuff like that, I'm like, if you don't have a clear goal of where you want to be, then this game isn't worth your time. Now, does this mean I'm quitting Skyblock? Definitely not. I've already gotten through my fair share of hardships in Skyblock through my own work and through the help of others as well. In terms of like dumb stuff happening, like me NPC selling my Terminator, or getting my Necron duped over, by the way. So we still got that as an issue. You can still dupe armor in this game. I haven't submitted an actual bug report, but I just honestly don't trust their bug reporting system to be any different than their ban appealing system. But at this point, Skyblock is too much of a lifestyle, and I still have things I want to do. I'm just not going to sweat net worth grinding anymore. I think that, aside from going for stuff like kind of 50 or E-Slayer and I hope I have things to do that are releasing on a more consistent basis, because they're biting off way more than they can chew with 1.0. And because they're trying to introduce so many changes, they're barely stopping to ask themselves like what the Skyblock community is going to think about these changes. And they have these forms and stuff that people could fill out, and I hope to God they take a hard look at them, and people who are responding on these forums are actually putting some good thought into proposed Skyblock changes. because they have a lot of good ideas. Some of my favorite ideas that Skyblock uh, is looking at changing is obviously just general, more developed skills. I think that the new armor slots would be a great idea. More health scaling instead of defense scaling is also good. It's always been a pet peeve of mine that for some reason, like, health hasn't changed even with crazy gear. Like, I'm always around 2,000 to 3,000 to 4,000. Like, it doesn't seem like that big of a difference. I would like to see maybe going up. Like, your EHP goes up a lot, but your health does not reflect it. I think that's a good idea. But stuff like making non-dungeon items not dungeonizable seems vaguely worded and kind of makes it a moot point to have a list of dungeonizables. If you can only use dungeon drops in dungeons, um, it would really be a slap in the face to anybody who's bought a Juju return. And it seems very, very surface level for them to realize. It's like, I think they're trying so hard to evaluate big picture of the game, and they're not looking at like the individual changes and asking if this is something that people actually want, or they're just trying to make the game different for the sake of updates. Now, they haven't done anything yet, so it's important not to panic and quit undercutting other people's Terminators by 10 mil on the AH. But, yeah, we'll see. Anyway, I'm probably rambling off track at this point. I'm going to wrap this up really quick. Basically, Hypixel Skyblock thrived off of skill-based content at the beginning, but now they're moving into a direction that is just going to be skills content instead of skill-based content, which is fine, but it's also coming with a lack of updates and things to do because they're trying to evaluate these systems, and now people are getting bored and cheating, and it's making those skills content seem kind of stupid. Like, what's the point of mining for so long when other people just already have it in 2 minutes? Like, it feels way less rewarding. Anyway, thank you very much for watching my video. I maybe should have done a better job scripting it, but I hope you enjoyed it. It was it was literally just a rant. So, you know, if you have thoughts on stuff, I'm always open to hear what you have to say, and I might very well change my mind on some of this stuff, but that is my current outlook on the state of Skyblock. Thank you.